Welcome into the KLSU Tailgate Show. I'm your host, Andre Champon, and today I'm joined by Tiger TV's Stephen Garrett and the Reveille sports editor, Jason Willis. How are we doing, guys?
Feeling good. Doing great.
Doing great today, man.
It's a little different, as you see. We've got Jason on this week, and we're actually outside here in Tiger Stadium, so a different look for the viewers. But let's start it off. LSU defeated the South Carolina Gamecocks last week in a game where it feels like they pretty much stole it from the home team. LSU went down by as many as 17, and they completed the comeback with a late touchdown run from Josh Williams. Now, LSU's offense, let's start with them. They put up over 400 yards last week against a very talented South Carolina defense, but struggled in short yardage situation at times. Garrett Nussmeier, 285 yards, two touchdowns and an interception. Now, LSU, despite not getting the greatest pushes on the offensive line, still managed to rush for 132 yards, which is something they've struggled with so far. So let's start off with this LSU offense. What does LSU have to do differently on offense this week, starting off against UCLA, to avoid kind of a slow start like they did against South Carolina? We can start with you, Jason.
Yeah, sure. I just think the main focus should be just staying on schedule, and that kind of starts with the run game. You need productive first down, second down runs, just staying on schedule so third down isn't such a slog.
Yep.
I agree. I think they just need to be more effective in short yard opportunities, slants, screen passes, they don't really take advantage of those in my opinion. And I feel like that's how you walk teams down the field, You can't always rely on a big gain or a big yard or a big throw or a big run to get you down the field. You got to take those short opportunities. Yeah,
and I think they have to play as the aggressor. I think it's as simple as that. It's already been twice where we've seen LSU start slow on offense. First against USC and now against South Carolina. But I think it's going to take them just not messing around. And LSU seems to be a little scared when it comes to attacking what's best for them. And I think that's the pass, obviously.
Definitely. And
they've been struggling to run. So I think for your first drive, you just have to – that's the tone setter. You have to go to what works. And I think that's the pass for you. But when looking at Garrett Nussmeier, how he played last week, what's something that he has to improve on for this week, now playing UCLA, who's a team who loves to send pressure?
Yeah, especially just talking about that pressure, obviously he has to make those checks quicker, adjust the pass protection, but just in general, you could also attribute that just to play calling in general. We need to be calling quicker passes, quicker hit plays, just so that you're prepared for that pressure rather than kind of suffering from it.
Right.
And all that ties back to pocket awareness.
Right.
Nussmeier hasn't been able to scramble real well or roll out to the left or right to make those play calls. So I feel like once he gets that kind of awareness in the pocket, kind of not getting sped up by the defense, I feel like he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think Garrett just has to be a better decision maker, just as a football player. There were a lot of times where Garrett tried to force a throw in the run outside of the pocket last week, and it was really just unneeded. It was either a 1st and 10 or a second, and manageable. And there's green in front of him. There's not like he, has to throw that ball, and he can always throw it out of bounds. So I think for me, it's just learning to make the good decisions, and I think last week really was a humbling, situation for him, because he threw 2 interceptions that he got away with. So I think he's going to be a little more careful this week. But UCLA is a team that really struggles defensively, especially these first 2 weeks where they gave up 307 yards in the air to Indiana last week. For the Bruins, first off, is there a way to make LSU one-dimensional in this game? And if so, how do you think they go about doing so?
Yeah, the only way I can think of to make them one-dimensional would be obviously stopping the run, which obviously a lot of teams have been able to do that against LSU this season. But I still don't think that favors them. I think this is, if Garrett Nussmeier in the pass game get going, that still doesn't favor LSU. UCLA, I think it's going to be an uphill climb either way for the Bruins. So.
I agree with that. I feel like as long as they cover the run game, it hasn't been that strong this season, so they should be fine on that front. But also having a strong secondary, because we know Nussmeier likes to throw the ball. So I feel like having a strong secondary that stays solid, it's like the same thing we talked about last week, just applying pressure to the quarterback.
Yeah, for me, obviously Jason said that is stopping the run to make them one-dimensional. I think it's stopping the pass at what they do best, just because LSU hasn't been able to run the ball effectively. You can count last week, but they got away with, Caden Durham was doing, some crazy things. But
God's word.
Right, and so I think the only way UCLA stops this is if they send enough pressure to Garrett Nussmeier to throw him off this game, and I don't see that happening with this UCLA defensive line. But play calling has been a question over the weeks for this LSU offense. Like we mentioned before that Nichols game, but how should Joe Sloan go about attacking this UCLA defense come tomorrow afternoon? They run a traditional 4-3.
Yeah, I think it's about balance, but more importantly, I think you should continue to be taking those big shots. I think in those first 2 weeks we noticed they really weren't taking big shots. They wanted Nussmeier to be as conservative as possible, and I think it held back the offense a little. You saw more of that in the second half against South Carolina. I think they should keep going with that.
Nice.
You know, I agree. I feel like although LSU's offense may not be right where they want it to be at this point in the season, it's still LSU offense. You know, UCLA, not a very strong defensive team.
Yeah.
I feel like if they play LSU football, they'll be just fine.
Yeah, and I think LSU is going to have to use a lot of play action to open up the middle of the field. If UCLA is going to drop that many guys back, as far as 3 linebackers, I think LSU is going to have to be able to run the ball, which is a given. But using that play action will allow them to, I guess, get up some more open space. But freshman running back Caden Durham, we just mentioned him, stepped up in Columbia last week, rushed for 98 yards, 2 touchdowns in a game where LSU desperately needed it. They needed the juice. He also had 50 yards after contact, which is quite impressive for such a smaller guy. But I guess my question is, should Caden Durham be the back that gets majority of the touches moving forward?
Yeah, you know, in my opinion, I think, like, if he emerges, then I think LSU's totally happy with that. But I think they'd also be a little bit disappointed because they've invested so much trust and so many resources in Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson. So, in my mind, what they want out of the backfield is a committee. You know, they want everyone contributing, not just Caden Durham.
Right.
You know, I agree with that. You know, I would love to see him take more carries. You know, he really put LSU in a position to win that game last week. I feel like until I see him, you know, one game is one game. You know what I'm saying? So I think
this is true. Yeah.
You got to come and be like reliable in multiple games back to back to be able to prove that you deserve that trust.
Yeah, to an extent, I think Durham should be getting more touches than he normally does, like say he did against Nichols, but not necessarily that making him the starter, right? I think you want to give playmakers like Durham the ball more, especially when a guy like him is so dangerous in open space, but you have to be able to get the other running backs involved as well. So it's kind of staying with that running back room. How would you like to see those other backs utilized? Should each running back have a certain role, sort of like they did last year with Noah Cain, John Emery, Josh Williams, and Caleb Jackson?
Yeah, well, I think the beauty of it is you have, in theory, 3 running backs who have versatility. And so I don't think they should chain them to, you know, Josh Williams does pass pro or Caleb Jackson's a power back, because then it's predictable.
It is.
So I think the idea is you want to be substituting like every 2 plays. I mean, you want to mass substitutions. You want to do a lot of that.
You know, I agree. You know, it keeps the defense on their toes when you're substituting multiple backs in and out, and just knowing their strengths and weaknesses in certain game situations. You know, like we saw Caden Durham taking hits after hits, 50 yards after contact. It's insane. So I feel like having him in like those types of situations and your other backs in other situations, so they can all shine in what they're best at.
Yeah, I think it comes down to being prepared as a running back room. I think you just have to be ready for your number to be called on. And as far as that, I mean, I think the coaching has to do a little better of a job of getting all those guys involved, because, I mean, like you've said, Jason, they're going to become predictable at a point in time where if Josh Williams is in the red zone and you're using him all the time in the red zone, teams are going to know that. So I think Caleb Jackson's going to have to be able to, you know, carry the ball out in open space, you know, when you say you're on your own 10, just stuff like that. But shifting towards that LSU wide receiver room, LSU poses the biggest threat for this UCLA defensive back room so far this season, where the defensive backs have greatly struggled, especially in man coverage. What should they do to counter this LSU wide receiver room this weekend?
You know, I think, like you said earlier, dropping their linebackers back a little bit. They're going to have 3 probably lined up, spread. So I feel like they know LSU likes to throw the ball. Nussmeier likes to throw the ball. So I feel like having those linebackers a little bit further back, making sure they are aware of the run game but focusing on the pass, I think that'll kind of keep LSU contained a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and just in terms of the DB's technique, just kind of keeping your head up when ball's in the air, you know, being alert for anything, because these LSU wide receivers, they're really emphasizing this year. They want every wide receiver to be able to run routes at every level. So, you know, whereas last year Chris Hilton, who's coming back to this game, was more of a deep threat guy. Now he's kind of sharpening his short route running. So I think the UCLA defense just needs to be ready for whatever.
I agree, and I think this is a week where UCLA is going to have to try and run a whole lot of zone coverage. They're going to have to drop back a lot. And I think this is a game where you're going to have to be way more physical than you were with Indiana. And if that means, hey, a few 15-yard penalties rather than giving up, a chunk 75-yard play every possession, I'd take that if I were UCLA, especially with the way that they've been playing. But I think that, like I said, just dropping a lot of guys back in coverage and just trying to contain, they kind of have to just pray that they get to Nussmeier, because if not, they're going to take what they get. But before wrapping up with this offense, let's discuss that offensive line. Do you think that group just needed a few weeks together to get the technical issues sorted out? Or do you think this unit is one that has a serious issue that needs to be fixed?
Yeah, it's hard to say because it's just been so uncharacteristic. I mean, you see guys like Will Campbell, they were so excited about getting him out on the outside, making blocks, and sometimes he hasn't been able to make those blocks.
Right.
So, I don't know if it's a chemistry thing, but you were obviously seeing a bit of an improvement. I think tomorrow is a big test for them to just kind of establish that against a team that they should be able to push around.
For sure. I agree. I feel like I said it week 2. This is a veteran O-line. You got a lot of guys that have been here for a couple of years. They know the program in and out. It's just going to take time. We've seen improvements, I feel, in the last week or so, but I think they're just going to keep rolling. The confidence is going to keep getting there. I have no worries come.
Yeah, personally, I think it's developing more into a problem because LSU even struggled to rush the ball against Nichols. I mean, that doesn't come as an accident. And I understand that they ran it well against South Carolina, but the inconsistency of these guys, I mean, some games they're very good in pass pro. I would say last week they were not as great. Like I said, it's really confusing because you expected so much out of a group that was, expected to be top one in their group in the country. And maybe that's getting to their heads. So, but also I think you have to credit Charles Turner. Losing that one center, I mean, that's kind of like your quarterback on the offensive line. Yeah, he was the brains. So maybe it's Chester trying to get, situated with call-outs and stuff like that, but we'll see this weekend. Who on this offense, though, do you see being a key player for tomorrow afternoon against this Bruins defense?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Aaron Anderson. I think, Chris Hilton, he's back, but Brian Kelly said he wouldn't really be 100%, so I think Aaron Anderson, he had a pretty big game last week. I think he follows it up with another one.
Okay.
I agree. I'll also say Peyton Durham again. I feel like they put him in that same situation. This is a team he'll be able to run through, run over, all of that, all of the above. So I feel like another big opportunity for that freshman. I'm going to go – I think they're going to probably bracket Kyron Lacey this game if UCLA's smart. I'm going to say CJ Daniels. I think he's going to have a really big weekend. I'll say over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown maybe. But let's move on to this UCLA offense versus this LSU defense. There's no question that both of these groups have had their struggles over the past few weeks. And UCLA not being able to move the ball very well against Indiana. LSU on the other side giving up a bunch of chunk plays to South Carolina. Let's discuss both of those groups. UCLA is a team that runs a spread, but this year their offensive line has not really allowed them to run it as much as they'd like. So they have favored the pass so far this season. So for them on offense, how important is it to be able to do both against LSU?
It's super important. As far as the run goes, I think that's probably where LSU's had the most trouble. In the past, you see some positive moments, but in the run game, I mean, you're seeing guys untouched 65 yards down the field right up the middle. So just, I think it's super important that they establish the run. They take advantage of that weakness.
Yeah, both is very important. I feel it's just the consistency has to come with it. You can't have a couple great stops on one play and then next down you're giving up a huge run like that. That's not how the game is supposed to work. You're supposed to keep everybody contained, do your job, don't worry about someone else's job. So I feel like covering both areas is going to be very important for them.
Right. Just watching film for me personally, I watched a little bit of that UCLA-Indiana game, and they just didn't look physical. And I think if they show up like that here in Tiger Stadium, where LSU knows they have to be better, it could get out of hand really quickly. But I think the key for them is going to be able to be creative within their offense. So if they can be creative within their offense, get LSU on their toes a few times, I think that'll open up, I guess, more for their spread offense. LSU, though, defensively got to the quarterback 5 times. Braden Swenson 3 times himself. For this LSU defensive line, how much improvement have you seen over the past year? Do you see that continuing against UCLA this weekend?
Yeah, I think there's been a ton of improvement, especially on the edge. Swinson and Savion Jones, they both look, re-energized, much more comfortable rushing passer.
Okay.
You also have to give credit to the scheme in general. That pressure has been created. It's coming from linebackers, from DBs, and that's Blake Baker. So.
Right.
No, I agree. I feel like each week we're seeing improvements, especially in the linebacker area. The season started off a little bit slow at that position, but I feel like UCLA can be a game where they really gain that momentum, gain that juice, and regain that confidence that they need to finish out this season, especially going into SEC play.
And I think for them, this defensive line, last week what they did with the pass rush, I don't think they're going to get 5 sacks, but I think they're going to be able to really stop the run, which is something they struggled at times to do last week. I think the interior is going to let me just set this straight. When Jacoby and Guillory went down, LSU had a question mark on the interior line. Now that they had another week to kind of get things figured out, I think LSU is going to be able to stop the rush a little better and get more into the backfield. And just if they can get the same production that they get, pass rushing in the run, this defense is going to be much more dangerous than they are right now. But like I just said, with losing Jacoby and Guillory on the interior, LSU is still trying to find a player that can consistently stop the run on the interior and cause disruption at the defensive tackle position. Who do you think that guy has to be for LSU?
Yeah, no, if I'm LSU, I'm absolutely worried about the interior. Even though it's been a week for them adjusting, it may just be a matter of we don't have the guys at that position.
Right.
Same thing that it was at cornerback last year. Like Brian Kelly said, there's no one walking through that door. So, if it is anybody, I'd put my money on freshman Ahmad Bro. He's added so much weight. He looks so much more prepared to rush from the inside and cause havoc there.
Okay.
I agree with you, but I also am going to say Savion Jones. He plays a very aggressive ball game, and I love that out of him. He kind of brings a spark, in my opinion, to the line, and I think that's what they need to get the other guys in line,
I'm going to say, I have kind of 2 right here. I'm going to say Taviar Suggs is my first. That's a guy that has the physical attributes to be super successful. I mean, Brian Kelly told us he's a guy that squats 630. I mean, you would think, right, he's getting to the backfield every play with that type of strength. But I think he just has to bring that mental toughness that Jacobian kind of brought as the leader of that defensive line. If he can do that and kind of learn week by week, I think he's going to emerge as that guy. Also, Parashant moving to that defensive tackle position. Didn't do too bad this past weekend, and I think you're going to see a lot of improvement on the interior, as a whole. But cornerbacks had a quiet game against South Carolina, but is this a game where you think they can finally showcase improvement?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's sort of a light challenge in terms of the opposing offense. So these cornerbacks, they're looking for you're definitely seeing these improvements, but you're looking for kind of a statement game. I think this could be that game.
Okay.
I agree. With UCLA being more of a pass-first team than a rushing team, I feel like this will give the cornerbacks an opportunity to see the ball in the air, make some big plays for LSU, and get the ball rolling.
Okay. I think UCLA's bread and butter is their passing game, and it's a game where the cornerbacks are going to be way more physical than in games past, and you're going to actually see LSU be able to make a play on the ball and actually like a bang-bang play, not like an overthrow or something like that. I think you're going to be able to see good on good finally, kind of like we saw against USC. But I'll say LSU makes a lot more plays in one-on-one coverage this week. Is there anything different you want to see these defensive backs do, though, against UCLA, just in general, maybe improvement-wise?
Yeah, we've seen a lot this season, physical plays on the ball, but just like you were saying, just more of that.
Right. Okay.
I agree. Just staying solid, staying aggressive, staying disciplined in your position, making sure you're not letting your emotions get the best of you or gambling on certain balls or routes. Just staying solid, staying in your place, making sure you cover that receiver.
Yeah, I have one thing. It's tackling. And that could go for the entire defense, if we're being completely honest. Way too many run, and this was in the run game. Yeah. This wasn't even during the pass game. This is our safeties, and we're talking defensive backs, last guys out there, and that should be the guys that are your best open field tacklers, and they're missing. So I think that has to completely get better. And if you want to be a good defense, just in general, you have to be able to tackle week in and week out. If it's not getting better progressively through the season, that's not a good sign for any defense. So that's how I think. But the linebackers, they had their ups and downs against South Carolina last week, where they played more of a 4-3, right? But using Harold Perkins as that star, do you think LSU should stick to putting those three linebackers on the field at the same time?
Yeah, it should be a situational thing, in my opinion. I know that you have to keep Whitwicks on the field.
Right.
He's one of the most confident open field tacklers on the team by far. You know, you see him stretching out in ways that you see guys like Major Burns or other people in the
right.
defensive back room. They're getting juked on those plays, and Whitwicks is making a strong tackle. So definitely you want to keep that three linebacker set in play, but it's also against a team that likes to pass the ball. You're also leaving a liability because
right.
as good as Harold Perkins is in coverage, I don't know that you feel more confident with him out there than a DB every time.
Yep, I agree.
No, I agree. I feel like keeping them rotating might keep the offense on their heels a little bit, kind of like how we talked about with the running backs. But I do think it's the same situation of keeping guys in positions where they're going to succeed,
Yeah. And I know LSU keeps three linebackers. I like how they do that. I like how they keep those guys on the field. As hard as it is to play defense in general in college football now, I feel like it's only getting harder and harder. You definitely want the players playing in a position where they feel at most comfortable with. That's where your job is as a defensive coordinator, to be creative, to get attention off of your best players so that others can get involved. I think that's what Blake Baker is sort of figuring out right now. I think that's why week one was a little bit up and down for them. They're still trying to figure things out. But who is a player you see having a big game on this defense?
Yeah, for me, I got to go with Ashton Stamps. I just think, he hasn't had a pick in his career. I found that
right.
just a couple of days ago. I think this is his first one.
Okay, awesome.
I'm saying Greg Penn. He's been the
okay.
most solid on our defense, in my opinion, at that linebacker position, and I feel like he is going to come out and really make a statement this game.
You think it's going to be an interception?
I feel like it could, but I had someone else for our turnover, so we'll get to that.
I have, this is true. I think this is the first game that people actually get to see LSU, like I said, making plays on the ball. And so I'm going to say Ashton Stamps has that game where he's just a ball hawk. I think this is a game where he could have two, to be honest. And so I guess that kind of answered my question. What would your turnover pick be?
Ashton Stamps. I see his first pick. I was literally just about to mention that.
I think it's
unanimous.
It's a sweep.
Nice.
It is a sweep. We have Ashton Stamps interception.
You know what that means? It's going to happen. He's going to get his first career pick, guys. You can book it.
Yeah, exactly. But we have a little bit of time on our hands, so let's have a little fun. A lot of good college football going on this weekend. So before these LSU game predictions, let's go around the nation, give our picks for some of these games going on this week. Starting off, we have number 24 Illinois traveling to Lincoln, Nebraska, to face the Cornhuskers of Nebraska, number 22. Now, Nebraska coming off that win against Colorado, so who do you have winning that one?
Yeah, I got Nebraska. Noted Patrick Mahomes fan Dylan Raiola. I think he's going to carry them to a win over Illinois. I think that one's a good one for Nebraska.
Okay.
I agree. I got Nebraska too. Got Pat Mahomes Jr. on that team. I thought we're going to see a lot of Pat Mahomes moments.
Yeah, I'll have Nebraska. I think being at home really helps them. That's a team that has a very underrated stadium, and they always pack it out. No matter what, 2-10, 9-3, like it does not matter.
It's also a team that is looking to take that next step. After years of kind of not being up to the level of the program expects, the fans expect. So
this is true, and right now I'll say they're playing better football currently, like together, complementary football. They're playing good offense, and their defense is playing really well. Yeah. So I'll say that they win. Let's move on. Next up, we have a game that will be going on at the same time as this LSU-UCLA game. I think this one's going to be the most interesting of the weekend, in my opinion. We have the number 11 USC Trojans visiting Ann Arbor to face the number 17 Michigan Wolverines, who they have their playoff hopes. If they want any chance of making the playoffs now, they have to pretty much not win out, but they have to win this one. Mm-hmm. So who wins that one? Yeah,
well, I think it'll be interesting, but not because I think it'll be close. I think USC might win this by a good bit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Michigan just doesn't look like the same program this year without Jim Harbaugh. The physicality's not there.
Right.
The aggressiveness is not there.
I'm going to have to go with Michigan. I feel like they want to keep their playoff hopes alive, especially coming off last season. Even though they don't have Harbaugh anymore, I feel like this game is a must-win for them, and they know that.
So you're going to have Michigan with the upset alert.
Yes.
Well, I have to say, my little Lee Corso, not so fast. I think USC is, like Jason said, I think they're going to win this one with ease. USC is a little, I would say both teams are battle tested, but USC has played the closer game, right? The Texas blew out Michigan earlier this season. And one thing is, you can't win a game against a good team when you have so many questions at the quarterback position. Obviously, Alex Orji is, I think, starting this weekend. I don't think that he has enough to go and beat a team that already knows their identity, I guess is what I'm saying. But next up, we have the number 12 Utah Utes traveling to Stillwater to face Ollie Gordon and the number 14 Oklahoma State Cowboys. Cam Rising, quarterback, I think, what is he, 7 years now? 6, 7?
Ooh, something like that.
Tell him to get a LinkedIn. I mean, he injured his hand last week, but he is active for this weekend. Who wins that one?
I'm going with Oklahoma State. You know,
Okay.
I watched them earlier this year against Arkansas. Just, you know, it was a scrappy battle. They know how to win, and I think that's gonna, you know, it's gonna take precedence here against Utah.
Okay.
I agree with you. I'm going Oklahoma. I feel like they have a very physical team. You know, they're not afraid to go out and hit somebody, and I feel like that'll help them in this game.
I'm actually going to say Utah wins this one. I think it's a really scrappy game. I think it's a defensive battle of all things, which is crazy because Oklahoma State and Utah both struggle at playing defense. I think just having that experience at quarterback with Cam Rising, I think that helps. And so I'll go with the Utes. Finally, we have the nightcap game, which will be on ABC tomorrow night at 6:30. Number 6 Tennessee and Josh Heupel travels to his alma mater, where he played in Norman, to face the number 15 Oklahoma Sooners. Just a really cool story. First off, do you guys expect boos from Oklahoma
Josh
fans?
Heupel says he doesn't, but you know, I
never-
know that was
I
taken
don't
out
know.
of context a little bit, but
You never know till you're in there.
I think they will boo him, but
Yeah,
we'll see. Who wins that game? Steven, we'll start with you.
I have Tennessee winning this one. You know, Tennessee's been very solid, 6th ranked team. You know, I feel like I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout, but I don't think they'll have any problem.
Okay.
yeah, I'm with you. I think, you know, just both teams are super unproven. You know, there's a lot of hype around them, but neither of them have really faced a top tier opponent yet.
Battle
And
tested.
Yes,
Right.
for sure. And I think Tennessee, though, has the talent advantage.
Yeah, I'm going to say Tennessee wins this one, and decently, I'll say 13. Tennessee by 13 in this one, just because OU is a team that offensively they struggled against a Tulane defense that struggled to find their footing the past few weeks.
Yeah.
And I think Tennessee is a team that if you let, you know, if you turn the ball over a few times, they're going to flip the switch like that. Like it'll be quick, but I'll have Tennessee by 13. Finally, though, we have the LSU Tigers hosting the UCLA Bruins for the first time in Tiger Stadium ever at 2:30 p.m. Central tomorrow on ABC. LSU and UCLA's last meeting was in Ed Orgeron's final season, where UCLA defeated LSU 38-27. It was the Max Johnson infamous backwards pass where they lost in Pasadena. So what's your score predictions for this game? And I guess what do you kind of expect?
Yeah, so I'm putting on the proverbial Mike the Tiger hat right now, and I think it's going to be LSU beating UCLA 38-10 is my prediction.
Okay.
And I think, you know, the bigger question for me is not is LSU going to win this game, but can they turn it into positive momentum next week, the week after?
Right, because I mean you're going into a game where South Alabama has been beating the bricks off of teams, and honestly, as an LSU fan, they should be scared to play this team. I'm not. That's a trap game written all over it.
That's not lip service, no.
Right, right. But Steven, go ahead.
I have LSU winning this one. You know, I feel like it will be a nice win for them. I'm going 10 to 20, 21. You know.
Okay, you think UCLA covers?
Oh no, I think LSU covers.
You think LSU covers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like it'll be a good win for the Tigers, but you know.
Yeah, I think this is a game where we're going to just see LSU dominate from start to finish. I think, I don't know, it's just a hunch. I think LSU has a lot to prove. Obviously,
Definitely.
you know, everybody's saying they shouldn't have won last week, and they're probably mad about that. And UCLA just they don't have the talent this year. They don't have the offensive line that's struggling right now. Just the players, and the coaching's struggling to find out what's wrong. So I think, like I said, I'll have LSU winning this one, 43-13. But that is going to do it for us here from Tiger Stadium. I want to say thank you to Stephen Garrett and Jason Willis for joining me today. I also want to thank the entire LSU communications staff, including Michael Bonnet and Kent Lowe, for allowing us to bring you guys this show in beautiful Tiger Stadium, as you can see. I'm Andre Champagne, and this has been the KLSU Tailgate Show.